Hello, welcome to Ed Media. So, if you've kept up with my posts, you would know that I attended the Meetup this year for BFDI and Inanimate Insanity Tour. I attended the Atlanta Meetup and got to watch Teapot 24 and IIIV 6. So today, I will be reviewing both episodes. However, you don't have to worry about spoilers, as this review is spoiler-free. But before we talk about the episodes, I wanna talk about the Meetup experience first. So I went to the Atlanta screening, and I gotta say, leading up to the event, I was hella nervous. I was afraid I wouldn't get there on time, I was afraid something would happen on the way there, and I was even afraid the tickets that I got were a scam. Hell, I was afraid that I put the wrong address on the GPS and that it would lead us to something completely different and I wouldn't get to the meetup on time. Yeah, let's just say I'm an anxious overthinker. However, I'm happy to say that nothing bad happened on the way to the meetup. Even on the drive I reassured myself multiple times that it would be okay and I'm just anxious right now. And then finally we made it to the theater where the event would take place. The environment was actually really nice. There was great structure, even a waterfall, the theater just looked beautiful. I paid for the parking and we headed to the theater. I forgot to mention that I went with my older sister. When we entered the lobby, there were a lot of fans. It was a sight to see. There were fans that seemed more ecstatic than me. I brought my golf ball and knife plushies with me because they're my favorite characters. And upon entering the theater, I headed to the merch while my sister headed towards the bar for a drink. I got a 3 plush, the candle and silver figure, the shirt, and the poster. I wanted to get a Poppy plush but I didn't have enough money and I didn't want to ask my sister if I could have some money because she already spent a lot on her ticket. So we headed towards the balcony because I got the cheapest tickets, and that made us sit on the balcony on the last few rows. But honestly it wasn't that bad. But the cheapest tickets were still fucking expensive. Now it's time to talk about the audience. I gotta say, I know this is not a proper theater showing, it's more like an event so there's gonna be screaming, but that's not a factor in this statement I'm gonna say. This was by far the worst audience experience I've ever had. I'd like to preface that I'm not saying this because of the screaming. I expected that. I mean it certainly didn't help, but the screaming isn't why I'm saying this. I'm saying this because of the people I sat next to. Next to me was a dude that seemed, honestly kinda antisocial. And it's not the cute shy way. It was more like, I don't give a fuck about how I impact other people. Because when I was seated in my seat, I like to spread my legs out. Unfortunately that meant my leg went into the other seat space. But he hadn't sat down yet. Then when he came to sit down, I didn't realize my leg was taking his space until he pulled the seat down so he could sit. It hurt and it shocked me so I apologized and tried taking my leg out. But this dude, instead of even acknowledging me, he just kept pulling the seat down with no force and even did it faster, which was insanely rude. Yes, I should have been aware that NY leg went into his seat, but he hadn't sat down yet so I didn't know. And when I found out, instead of waiting until I pulled my leg out, he just pulled seat down harsher and more aggressive, which hurt a lot by the way. After that, I was about to say something, but I didn't want to cause a problem because we're all here to have fun, and I didn't want to ruin anyone's night, so I let it go. However, that didn't stop him from making the experience worse. During the episodes, when someone would get up to use the restroom or something, of course they'd have to stand up and make their way out of the room. That didn't bother me because the screen was huge and I could still see the episode. And besides, every person was fast when they would get out so it would only take a second for them to walk out. However, the dude had a problem. Anytime that would happen, this fucking guy would start moving his head around rapidly for no reason. Mind you, he can still watch the episodes, the screen is huge. He wouldn't miss much anyways because like I said it doesn't take that long. But this fucking guy would act like he's behind a tall ass dude, but he wasn't. You might be wondering why I was so pissed off about this. Well, that's because when he would do this, then he would invade my space and even interrupt my field of vision. Like dude, it's not that serious. He really annoyed me during this because of how often he would do it. Anytime someone would do this, which was a couple of times, he would do this exact thing. Like Brochacho, the episode isn't going anywhere. He had a comic book in his hand so whenever a hype moment would happen, he'd throw it up in the air. Of course he'd catch it, but there was this one time where it literally landed on me. Fucking dumbass. And he wasn't even nice about it. He didn't apologize or even say anything, he just gave a mad look and snatched it back. I would have passed it to him but I was already tired of him and just wanted him to take it. And the person behind me certainly didn't make it better. I'm pretty sure they would grab onto my seat or put their legs on it, because a majority of times, I could feel my seat shaking, and it wasn't because of me, it's because the person behind me was either holding on to my seat or their legs are on it. The space for your feet, while it wasn't a lot, it was enough to keep you comfortable. I had enough space to where my feet don't touch the person's seat that's in front of me. So this person behind me was just being extremely rude to my space because there is no need to shake my seat. I wanna watch the episodes comfortably, not while the seat is shaking me. And like I mentioned, the screaming didn't help. While I expected it, the first time it happened, it really hurt my ears. My sister agreed too. So yeah, I had to deal with that. It's also important to mention that when loud noises happen, I get really anxious. So during the episodes, I did feel myself getting really nervous and even a panic attack almost forming. But that's on me because I should have prepared for that. I knew the theater would be loud, so I should have brought some earplugs. I don't know why I didn't. Aside from that, the experience was fun. It was funny seeing some people's reactions to dramatic moments in the episodes, where people would scream at their favorite characters to comfort them or whatever. And the 2 episodes shown were pretty good. And the Q&A was also nice, especially since a lot of the questions were really interesting. I wasn't able to ask a question because I was at the balcony and it would take forever for me to go to the nearest microphone, and not to mention the long-ass line. Yeah, my question would never get answered. After the event ended, we left the theater and on our way home, ate some good-ass Waffle House. Like that was the best Waffle House I've ever had. The waffle was just so good. And then I headed home and was comforted with my new merch and thoughts on the episode. So with my experience aside, let's get on to a spoiler-free review of the episodes. So first off, Inanimate Insanity IV Episode 6, called Point of No Return. The title is actually super accurate because I gotta say, this episode really changes a lot. I was not prepared. It was more dramatic than I thought. This really was the turning point of the season, which it shouldn't be happening this early, so I'm guessing this is the start of a really traumatic season. I'll even go as far as to say this is the biggest game-changer episode since the Season 2 finale. Obviously it wasn't as game-changing as the Season 2 finale because that was intense, but it's still there, Watching the premiere episodes of this season, it definitely didn't follow up on the tone of the Season 2 finale, but it didn't need to because we needed to chill. However, this episode definitely does. This feels like a follow-up to that finale. You guys might be thinking I'm being dramatic, but I'm even kidding. In fact, we even get some flashbacks to the Season 2 finale. We got some added context to what happened in the movie and some stuff we didn't see. Even the Season 2 finalists have some time to shine this episode. So if you're a fan of Knife and Suitcase, then congrats to you, because you get some great content from them. As a Knife fan, I was scared we wouldn't get much of him, but back-to-back episodes of him, yeah, I'm satisfied. The plot I could say for this episode without spoilers is that after everyone hears of Fan's awakening, we check up on how Fan is doing, but deep secrets are revealed that concerns everyone. And throughout the episode we see how the various contestants face this reveal, and this causes some interpersonal drama between contestants that have been bottling up to rise. Towards the end, we see how this reveal is dealt with. Also, this is the longest episode in the season. Even longer than episode 5, by a mile. This episode was really long and I feel like the contestants had a lot of time to shine. There are some character arcs that have been building up this season that are finally shining here. Of course we know that Poppy would have time to shine because they were in the event logo and had a plush for it, but some other characters that shined were Tag, Paper, Fan, Box, Bot, and some others, but I don't want to get into spoiler territory, so you'll just have to wait. But I did mention that we got a lot of callbacks to the Season 2 finale. And because of that, Knife and Suitcase shine here too. And another thing I want to bring up is that this episode is really sad. I don't know why they made such a tearjerker episode already. Like, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I may or may not have cried in the theater during this episode. Though I wasn't the only one, since a lot of people on the theater did with their moans of despair during these moments. Even the dude next to me was shaking intensely and heavily breathing. Now if you think I'm being dramatic, even my sister, who has never watched Inanimate Insanity before, even asked if this was the final episode. That's all I'm gonna say. So to connect this episode changes a lot and I don't know how the season will go from here. So that kinda shows what kinda season IV will be. If I had to compare it to a previous episode, yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the Season 2 finale simply because of how much this changes the story going forward, not to mention the high emotions because, like I said, this episode is really sad. And also because this episode follows up from the finale. Not directly, but it feels like this episode is an answer to the finale. As for the elimination, I'm kinda not happy with it, but I think it was executed well. Yeah, I'm pretty sad that this contestant got out since I really liked them, but I think the episode was able to do it in a satisfying way. I think characters that will become more loved from this episode is Poppy and Tag. Overall, I'd give this episode a 10 out of 10, it's definitely my sabotage episode this season. There were minor pacing issues and sometimes the episode dragged on, but overall the deep and dramatic moments along with this episode being a game changer truly satisfied me. So this review is kind of a big deal considering the last Teapot episode really disappointed me. I even went as far as to saying that I don't have faith in this season anymore. So does Teapot 24 save that? Well, before we get into that, I will first say which episode this is the most similar to. I will say that this episode is more similar to Teapot 23, no fucking shit, because it has the same challenge and follows up, but I'd also say the BFDIA5 mini episodes, specifically BFDIA5B, and C simply because it has that vibe where the episodes continue the big challenge and follows up on each of the contestants and where they have ended up. Other than that, that's really it. So what did I think? The plot I could say for Teapot 24 is after one's confrontation, she deals with Black Hole, and both of them are really the spotlight of the episode. I will say Black Hole was pretty good this episode. However, the other plot lines that continue are Pencil in the past as she continues her heinous actions. Along with that, the past plot lines of different groups of contestants continue as they navigate how to get out of the situation they're in. The episode ends with a lot of these different stories having significance into the challenge, which is defeating one. Well, for starters, I will say that the previous episode's issues such as the pacing and awful dialogue are still kinda here. But I will say it's handled better here. This episode does cut from unnecessary plots and does have moments where you can settle down and breathe instead of being fast-paced. But since there are a lot of different plots going on, it kinda cooks this episode to having a bad pace. This is why Teapot 23 should not have had so many unnecessary plots to fill up runtime, because it doomed this episode to having to juggle many of them. There's a lot of characters to keep up with and the different plots to switch to make this episode feel like you're watching slop. Even my sister said that it was confusing, so I'm not exaggerating. However, I do think that the final 10 minutes are honestly really peak. Because I do think the episode did a great job at bringing the different plots to coincide. The different plots are nowhere near done, but this episode made it so that all the different plots sorta like came together. And that's really what the final 10 minutes were able to accomplish. It was able to have the plot become central into defeating one. And speaking of one, I will say she improved a lot here. Instead of the screaming phrases and irrationally angry, here she's become the one we all know and love. Manipulative and intimidating. And we also learn a lot about her too. And speaking of, the characters that shined here were obviously 1, but also Black Hole, 3, 4, and obviously Pencil. The teaser for this episode did hint that she would have some spotlight in this episode, and boy she did. But her storyline is definitely getting interesting. I did like her a lot this episode. But I think the episode does do a good job on building up the big fight we're gonna have in the final episode of the trilogy. While I'm not excited because, like I said, I don't really have a lot of faith anymore for this season, I do think that this episode was an improvement. Like I said, those final 10 minutes was really good and it does a great job at setting up Teapot 25. So does this episode do a great job at having me excited for the rest of the season? Well, to be honest, not really. Because like I said, the episode did have the same problems as Teapot 23, just not as much. But since the episode did do a much better job at it and the final 10 minutes were really good, I will say that if Teapot 25 carried this momentum, I could potentially become excited for Teapot again. But for now, I'm iffy. Much better than absolutely no faith, but I'm iffy for now. So overall, this episode, despite being a bit boring at first, I think towards the end it did become satisfying, so I will give it a 7.5 out of 10. So that was my spoiler-free reviews for this year's Meetup episodes. I will say that Inanimate Insanity stole the show this year. I think they had the better episode. So for this year, it's Inanimate Insanity. And for my thoughts on this year's theme, I thought it would be about powers and stuff like that, but now, I'm thinking that the theme is instead new beginnings. Which is highlighted as this year the newer contestants are highlighted this year with Poppy and 3, so that matches with this year's theme of new beginnings. This is shown with the episodes as Inanimate Insanity has a point of no return in this season and Teapot is setting up a climactic fight with one that will change the season forever. So overall, I had tons of fun in this meetup. And if they are in Atlanta next year, I hope I can return. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe por favor. Goodbye.